All right, welcome to Culture Couch Live this week. We got Mel, we got Carly, we got Adam. How are we all?
Hi, Rosie.
Very well. Thank you, Paul.
Rosie.
Excellent, going well. Enjoying myself and having some really good balance, which brings us to the Culture Couch topic of the day, Carly. A question's come in from Frank, and Frank's worried about, again, it's a long question, but he's worried about the balance in his life. And the question was more directed at me, I think, given that I was coaching and obviously kids and family and all that sort of stuff, and read about my story. But I thought it was a really interesting question to touch on, because we've now, in some way, shape or form, we've got the hybrid workplace, some coming back in. Just prior to us getting on, we spoke about the affordability of housing, which goes into values and changing values and changing. So, Adam, I'll start with you, largely because you're about my vintage. I know you're, and I'll make that clear that you're 6 years younger than me. I won't give away my age. We don't give away your age. But when I say balance, you and I are probably similar in terms of what it looked like from our point of view. I talk about life balance. I don't talk about work-life balance. But what does that mean to you when Frank asks about balance in life?
It's one of the biggest and most powerful choices you can make. It's what is balanced to you.
Yeah.
And choosing that. So inevitably, we all grow up looking at role models. Oh, I wonder if that's the life I want, or if that's the life I want.
Yep.
And you then explore, as you kind of get from childhood into adulthood, what's it going to take me to get there? All right, well, what sacrifices do I have to make? How am I going to get there? And how am I going to learn? How am I going to apply that learning? Can I be successful or not? And so you start taking responsibility for that choice and taking risks and investing yourself in it. And inevitably, you don't get it all right. You'll test and learn a bit along the way. But for me, it's one of the best choices you can have. Like, in your life, what are you going to choose to do? So I think it's a ripper of a question. It really is very central to how I live my life.
It's a great point, that role modeling. It's something we talk about all the time, Carly, isn't it? I remember, Adam, to your point, Mum and Dad bought the place in Donbar when I was probably, 4 or 5, out in the orchards, eastern suburbs. But immediately, my role model was, the bricks and mortar was, this is the house, and I'll never forget, one of the best days of my life was colour TV. That was just unbelievable.
You guys are so old. I can't believe it.
Unbelievable day, Carly. And then we got the swimming pool in the backyard. Holy. So
what a day.
Point, Adam, you make. So my role model, so then I bought my first house at about 1986 sort of thing. So Carly, talk to that as well. Like, when generationally, what have you seen shift, to Frank's point? Because I suspect, Adam, you're like, me, we work, put money in the bank, and we buy a house. Then once that house becomes too small, we then talk to that, Carly. What are you seeing, and talk to Frank's question from your point of view?
Yeah, it's interesting, because I mean, for Mel and I, like, we're Generation X, so it wasn't that dissimilar. So I remember when we were really young, Mum and Dad saying, once you're 14 or 15 or 16, you need to go and get a job. You need to learn about earning your own money and what you need to do. And I remember them saying, you need to save 10% of everything you earn and put it away in a bucket for whatever you need to buy, which still, for me, was property in that generation. But I think what we're trying to achieve now is quite different. And you mentioned it before when we got on the call, but, back then it was, you have to work to live, and you have to put everything into work. And then whatever comes out of that will kind of be a result of how much effort you put in. So for us, yes, the job you worked, and the jobs that I were in later on were 9 to 5. But it was always accepted that if you needed to do more, or you needed to come in early or weekends or whatever, that you would do that as part of the role. And that for me is kind of normal. And Mel, I suspect you're the same in that kind of Generation X era. But what we're seeing now in a lot of the literature and with a lot of our clients in the workplace is that, you know, the new generation of millennials, or Adam, what's the one after millennials now? I don't even know.
Dead.
They get paid to work the hours that they're there, and they don't really understand why you would work outside those hours. But again, what they're striving to achieve is very different. So for all of us, maybe it was a house, maybe it was a lifestyle, whatever. Whereas those people now are a lot more about purpose, a lot more about, you know, immediate experiences and traveling and, you know, great restaurants and friends and all of those things. So I guess the outcome of why they're working, or the reason for why they're working, seems to be quite different now than it was then. And I think therefore the effort and reward scenario looks different now than it used to as well.
Yeah, and I guess, Mel, that's the, be aware, I guess, of what you're trying to achieve. Doesn't matter, not a right or wrong to this discussion. You know, if you want to work long hours and make good money, if you want to work shorter hours and make less money, there's not a right or a wrong. I think where Adam hit it on the head was, I guess everyone has a choice, don't they? So you can choose to live your life how you want to live it. And I think to Carly's point, the choices now are different. You know, I want purpose, you know, I want a really good culture. I want to feel a sense of belonging. You know, I want to go to work, you know, knowing that I'm making a difference. And that allows people to feel much better at work. You know, I mean, the disengagement at work is quite stark at the moment. So, you know, again, when we're talking about this balance, it just seems that the goals have shifted, which is not right or wrong. It just seems that they have, haven't they? The goals now of people, and what does that look like for the balance of this generation?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think touched on a lot of very important things. When I think about that, the value system does underpin wherever your mindset is around this. So in terms of working overtime, we've seen a lot of workplaces that have overtime as an expectation. So, and then that sits in two buckets for the individual, for the employee. Is that opportunity or is that exploitation? And you'll find that most people will see it as one or the other. And the way that they see it is 100% dependent on their values. And to Carly's point, also on the generation. So in terms of, you know, aspiring to the dream, if you put 10% away of what you earn now as a kid, you're still not going to buy a house in 20 years' time. So there's a difference there's a difference in the time, and there's a difference in earnings versus house prices and all the other economic factors that we know. But where do your values lie? You can still strive towards it, no matter what you're earning, and ultimately achieve it. But what actually are you valuing? You can put in long hours at work. Is it an expectation, or do you want to do it? Do you really want to achieve well within the work? Do you want to be recognized? Why are you doing the overtime? And what are you sacrificing if you are doing excessive hours? So for me, this entire thing does reside around value systems and where people, what people value within themselves.
And I think we touched on Adam in one of the Culture Cats about a month ago, but it's interesting. I suppose we shouldn't be shocked, but most of the conversation we have on Culture Cats Live come back to culture. They come back to values, don't they? Which is not, I guess, as Mel, you were thinking there, I'm thinking, gee, it's sort of similar to the one we had, but they all do come back to, if you want balance in your life, and this is what it looks like, align yourself with a company that's got similar values.
Absolutely. And be part of authoring that process and living it every day. I guess a number of companies having been through this process with performance by design, and every time I do, it reminds me of the value of it and just how beneficial it is to go through. So even if you've got company values, examine, are you actually living them? And if you don't have them, articulate them and sharing that. That's step one. And then every step after that is living them towards your choices in life. So you only want to be, like you say, Paul, you only want to be somewhere where you align with the values.
Yeah.
And so
And I
be
think
clear
on
on those and how you align with them.
Yeah. And on that, Carla, I think let's flip it around too. If you're the leaders of the organization and you talk people, and you don't give a crap about your people, you're not living your values. And we see that a lot, don't we? So if we have more leaders walking the walk instead of just talking the talk, then balance will come out of that, because you can't say something and do something else and pretend you are that company, can you?
Yeah, absolutely. And we do it at Performance by Design because, you know, we live in a hybrid world. We are all very flexible. We've all got different commitments, but we trust each other enough to know that what we need to get done is going to get done. But even we've had a few new people start recently, and, you know, I would sometimes be on the phone and say, oh, I'm just ducking down the street to pick the kids up at 3:15. And up until that point, they're always saying, is it okay if I go away for 10 minutes to do whatever I need to do? But then when I'm saying, yep, I'm just going out because we're being flexible, and they understand then that that's okay, that role modeling behavior of us all doing that then is what makes it become acceptable. So, you know, picking up the kids for 10 minutes is not a black mark against your name. That's just, you know, being flexible and making things work. And I don't think you really understand the need for that flexibility until you get to a certain life stage either. Because I remember earlier in my career, you know, work was so fun. And, you know, for Mel and I in the media industry, we would have the best time and the best parties, and you wanted to be there more because that's what you did. It was really fun. But it's not up until you then, you know, settle down and, you know, kids come along and those kind of things that you realize how important that balance is. And I feel like for some people, they don't realize they need to make those choices until they get to certain life stages. And then it's what they see around them and the role modeling that they see around them to what has been acceptable within the business or not.
But again, it gets back to that role modeling, doesn't it, Carly? And Mel, it's, yeah, if the boss is, you know, going for a walk in the morning or leaving work at 5 o'clock and going home or going to soccer training or picking up the kids or whatever, what do you think everyone else is going to be doing? You know, if the boss is in at work at 6 a.m. in the morning and checking in everyone's office and then staying there till 9 o'clock at night, what do you think everyone else is going to do? So again, a lot of it does get back to the conversation we're having around values. But fundamentally, what's the values of the CEO? What are the values of the exec team? What are we seeing them do? Is what most people are going to do, really?
Absolutely. You've just reminded me, actually, Rosie, there was a business that where the CEO would go for a run religiously every afternoon. If it wasn't a run, it would be going to the gym. And of the numbers, rough numbers, I'm going to say 98% of that office was out running at lunchtime, to the extent that if you called, there was no one there.
Great.
And they were a fit, energized organization that, and the leader was a very strong leader, and the entire organization modeled those behaviors. And it was a phenomenally successful model. But he was a role model leader. He didn't ask anybody to run. But by the end of the day, he was like the Pied Piper, and he had 50 people running behind him. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, exactly. But look, I think to wrap it up, because it's a conversation that, again, I think just comes back to some people will love going to work from that particular time and love putting 80% of their salary in the bank. We're not suggesting there's any right or wrong, but I guess to wrap it up, it does come back to what you value, what you want to align to. Because if your values are, I want to pick up the kids on, 3 nights a week, and the CEO is not allowing you to do that, well, what's going to happen? Or the work environment, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Everyone's going to get frustrated. Really.
I think, Rosie, the other point is for the leaders or the business owners, just to be really mindful of there's so many different perceptions now. And I know we talk a lot about leadership as being self-aware, but if in your head you think that 9 to 5 sitting at your desk being a robot is what's acceptable and what's normal, I think just really having a think about everyone else and their different views and how they're probably different to what you expect needs to be something that all the leaders are thinking about at the moment too, because things are changing and they're changing quicker than they have before. And the recruitment situation, particularly in Australia, is really difficult. So, you know, we do need to be mindful of everyone's different perception, different priorities. And I think that's our perspective is always have the conversation with the group. And we're probably saying that that's super important with this topic as well.
Yeah, and we talk about it all the time. To ask the newest person, you know, ask after 2 weeks, are we a well-balanced organisation? What do you see? You know, it's a really good way to reference your culture and whatever you want to do. But even from a balance point of view, do you think we have balance? Just ask the question of the person that's been there for 2 weeks. Now, again, to your point, Carl, that might look slightly different from person to person, but just keep checking in. I think keep checking in on your staff, keep having the conversations, and there's not a right or wrong answer. So hopefully for Frank, it's given a little bit of clarity. But again, I think, Adam, you mentioned it comes back to your values, really, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it does. And choosing them and then choosing to live them every day.
Yep, 100%. All right, good way to finish Culture Couch Live. Hopefully, Frank, we've given you a bit of an insight into the I'm not calling it work-life balance, it's life balance. And I think if we start to, even if we talk about that word life balance, or 2 words life balance rather than work-life balance, I think that gives you much better indication. Is this suiting my life right now? Yeah, it is, because I have to go into work. I've got an important meeting. I can't miss that meeting. No, it's not suiting my life right now because my kid's representing Victoria in New South Wales in the netball championship. I need to be there. You know what I'm saying? So if we look at it from a life balance point of view, I think it's a much better way to look at it. Carly, what do you think?
Love it. Good perspective, Ruthie.
Do you think it helps Frank out or not?
Yeah. Frank's got a lot to think about.
You're absolutely right. All right, Frank, thank you very much for that question, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks, Mel. Thanks, Carly. Thanks, Adam. We'll see you next week on Culture Couch Live.